Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Paul from Prayer Witness. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day. Sorry it's been a while. A lot of things going on. I'm sure there's a lot going on with you, but let's get into it. Effects loops. Let's look at the board down here. You got a bunch of stuff. I've got a wah pedal. You kind of can see it over here. I mean, I guess I could move my pedal board a little bit. There's a wah pedal over there. There's a whammy pedal down here, so that's some pitch shifting going on. There's some distortion and an overdrive. There's a fuzz up there. That's the white box in the right-hand corner. You got this chorus pedal thingy. You got this delay thing going on. And then here's a multi-effects unit. So let's say you got one of them multi-effects pedals, right? That's got no effects loops on it. Is that a big deal? Do you need one of those things, or does it really matter? Well, to get straight to the point, if you've got a lot of pedals and you've got a multi-effects unit that doesn't have an effects loop on it, to be perfectly honest with you, you probably should upgrade. You probably should move on to an effects pedal that actually has one. But, hey, while you're typing and screaming at the phone, oh my God, what's this guy know what he's talking about? I can't do that. What is he talking about? I have to use the one I have. It's amazing. It's got all the sounds I want. I got it. There aren't too many out there left over. This video is triggered by a comment I saw. I've been meaning to do this video for a long time, but someone made the comment that, look, I have the Boss ME80. I don't have an effects loop. So what do? I got pedals all over the place, but I've got this thing. Most of the Zoom multi-effects units out there as well do not have effects loops on them. There's a few others scattered about in the wild that do not have effects loops. Most multi-effects units these days do have them, so many of you probably don't have this problem, but many of you are just watching this because, hey, maybe you've got an amp that doesn't even have an effects loop, or maybe you got that Tonex thing and you're like, well, it doesn't have an effects loop. Does that apply to me too? And yes and no. So let's move down to the board here just to kind of illustrate what's going on. So let's say my Plethora X5 here, the Plethora X5 does have an effects loop, but let's say it doesn't have one. So where do I put all this stuff? Honestly, the short answer to that is just put everything up front. Makes it a heck of a lot easier. Why? Well, because if you're looking at my board again here for effect, pun intended, if you're looking here, you'll notice that on the left hand side here I got a reverb, there's a delay there, there's this chorus. That's your modulation. Most of your time-based effects you want towards the end. But, if you've got a lot of stuff and you're trying to figure out where it needs to go, the last thing you want is to have all of your stuff going on after something like a delay or a reverb. This is going to screw everything up. Now, look, there's going to be a couple pedals out there, I think, that if you don't have an effects loop and you're just kind of adding to the chain, either at the very end or the very beginning, you're going to be fine. So things like delays, reverbs, just put them right after right after your multi-effects unit. So like for this example here, like let's say let's say that this is you. This is your delay pedal. Okay, let's say this Wampler delay is you, and you've got a multi-effects unit. Well, this thing can come right out and go straight into the delay pedal right in here, and then goes straight out to your amplifier. It's that simple, very easy. Maybe you got the flip side of this, which was my scenario for a very long time. I had a multi-effects pedal. It was the RP1000, Digitech RP1000. I had that for a long time, and the only pedal I ever used with it was a wah. And wah pedals are very easy. Why? Because you always put those at the very beginning of the chain anyways. So in this scenario, can't hardly see it over here, but let's move this over a little bit. So you got the Morley over here. That's what you see. It's a wah pedal. It could be your Crybaby, right? It could be a Morley. I don't know. I'm trying to think who else makes wah pedals. Those are the two main ones I can think of off the top of my head right now. But you definitely want that going in front. So this would go in front. If you got something like a whammy pedal, pitch shifting, octaves, whammies like I got here, drop tune pedals, anything that messes with the pitching of your signal in the guitar, that should be first anyways. So those kinds of pedals you definitely want going in ahead of the multi-effects unit, The only pedals that I would put after your multi-effects unit, if you look down here, are your delay pedal. Slide this sucker right back over, so you got the delay. So to demonstrate here, I'm going to do something in front of you on the Plethora X5. Because this does have an effects loop, I can very easily simulate what happens, you know, ahead or before certain effects. So let me do that for you right now. So here, this is really simulating everything going in front. So I'm going to turn on my distortion pedal, and what I'm using, in case you're curious, this whole pedal board is going into the clean front end of a Mesa Boogie Dual rectifier, and then from there it's going straight into my audio interface. Well, there's a load box, and then that goes into the audio interface, and then the IR that I'm putting in front of it is a 2 notes wall of sound, and it's got a blend of some Rev 4x12s, and I want to say some Mesa 4x12s as well. Anyway, so here's what it sounds like. Okay, so there's no effects going on. Now let's turn on this delay down here. That's what a delay should sound like, right? Well, let's say you got your multi-effects unit and you decide to get cute with your distortion pedal. Let's say you have a distortion pedal, you're trying to figure out where to put it. You should put it behind the multi-effects unit. So guitar goes into the distortion pedal, then into your multi-effects unit in the input, right? Well, let's say you put the distortion pedal on the output of your multi-effects unit and then out to your amp. Want to know what it sounds like? Well, this is what it's going to sound like. What we're doing on the Plethora is we're putting the delay before my distortion, so you get an idea of what happens. I turn the noise gate off because I'm simulating what would happen if my distortion pedal was after the delay. Here's what it's going to sound like. Play sounded a lot more sloppy there, didn't it? And I assure you, it's not because it was bad play. That's just what happens when you put delay before the distortion. So what this was simulating was what happens if you have your multi-effects pedal and it doesn't have an effects loop, and you're trying to figure out where to, and let's say you have a distortion pedal, you definitely want all that before the multi-effects unit. The only thing that I would consider ever putting ahead of a multi-effects unit is a reverb or delay. Those time-based effects are easy to put on the tail end, and you don't have to worry about anything in that multi-effects unit. Just worry as far as delays go. Just use your own delay pedal, right? That's all you need to do. For anything before that unit, remember, look down at my pedal board here just as a point of reference. Slide this sucker over here because I'm too lazy to move the camera. Turn the noise gate off. So you got your wah over here, then you got your whammy. So again, you want all your pitch shifting stuff to come in first before it hits that multi-effects unit. And again, if you've got some kind of modulation pedal, like I've got a small clone right over here, that's a chorus pedal. You got any kind of modulation effects, I still would recommend putting those before the multi-effects unit, just because if you've got delays or reverbs or something like that going on, you're going to have a much different effect there if you've got a modulation going on after the words is hard, dude. You got your delays going on, and then that delay will be modulated. So to hear what that might sound like, I'll do that for you real quick. So here, if you look down at our board again, what's going on. I'm just going to use a clean signal here. It'll still illustrate the effect. Here's what it's going to sound like with the delay. Just clean. Something basic right there. All right, now let's turn the chorus pedal on. You'll see what I mean. Now, for some of you, this might be cool. Now we're going to move the delay back where it probably should be. Okay, this is with no chorus. With chorus. So here are the subtle differences. I hope you did. But again, if you've got a multi-effects unit, there's no effects loop in there. It's not the end of the world. If you want to continue using that multi-effects unit, there is a way to move things around, but it's just best to understand good signal chain management when it comes to that. I mean, there's no true right or wrong way to have your signal chain, but if you want the traditional setup, if you want things to sound like how just about everybody else does, you're just trying to come up with your own riffs and stuff like that, you definitely do not want to move anything on the outside of the multi-effects unit. So anything coming in, so let's go back to the board. So coming into the multi-effects unit, you want all of this stuff going into the multi-effects unit and then out to your amplifier. Again, the only thing I would have, if you were to have anything coming out of that multi-effects unit, the only thing I would put on the end of that would be a reverb or a delay. But yes, everything else I would put at the beginning. The only other exception to that rule I could possibly think of is that if you do have a chorus pedal you really like, or a flanger or a phaser, whatever kind of modulation pedal that you have, if you want to put that on the onset, you want to put that on the output of your multi-effects unit rather than the input. It would be because maybe you don't use a whole lot of delay, or you actually like your delays being modulated if you've got that modulation pedal on, like a chorus or a flanger. The other exception to that rule would definitely be a tremolo. I would prefer the tremolo being on the end, just because tremolo effects tend to work better on the end of a signal chain rather than towards the beginning. That's just from experience from my end. But it's just going to depend. Just experiment, you know. The only pedals I would say are definitely not the exception to that rule are your pitch shifting, like your whammies, your wahs. Definitely wouldn't have anything like your fuzzes or your overdrives or your distortions. Definitely all of those would go in before the multi-effects unit. So your guitar goes into one of those pedals first, and then from out of those pedals right into your multi-effects unit. That's what I would do. At the end of the day, do you really need an effects loop? It just depends on your situation, you know. If you've got one of those, you know, cheaper multi-effects units like an ME80 or one of those Zoom pedals, it just really depends on what you're using in there. If you're using a lot of amps and stuff like that within them, you're definitely going to have most of that stuff coming. You're definitely going to have most of your pedals hitting the multi-effects unit first. It's not going to be the other way around. You're not going to do multi-effects unit and then your pedals. You could have a mixture too, you know. If you've got a wah pedal and you've got a delay pedal, that's easy, you know. You just have the wah pedal first and then the delay after that. I'm sure I'm missing something. I'm sure there's an exception to the rule somewhere. I can see my clock. I'm already at about 15 minutes. Dear God, this has been a long episode, and I'm sorry. I hope you learned something, though, at the end of the day. And, if you've got a Tonex, it doesn't need an effects loop, by the way. Remember, it's just a distortion pedal at the end of the day, or a clean amp at the end of the day. Either way, you're going to treat all of your pedals just like you were if that was its own standalone amp. Which means pretty much put everything in front of it. And then time bass effects, your delays, your reverbs come after it. It's that simple. And then listen to your ears, what you think sounds best. Does the chorus sound better before the amp or after the amp? That's for you to decide. I'm still wrestling with that to this day. There's some days where I think chorus sounds great before it hits the amp. And there's some days I think I want it going back in my effects loop. Chorus is a strange thing, along with flanger and phaser. Although phaser, I would argue, probably sounds better before the amp. The more I think about it. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. Hope you learned something. Questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down there in the comment section. Like it if you thought it was informative in any way, and we'll take it easy. Have a great one. Rock on.